Part 119. Online games, I really don't want to have unlimited fusion. Author, 7 years. Chapter 1182. Chapter 1182, Life hangs on a thread. The long-awaited Cyan figure. Regardless of blaming him, Suchen told He Shao and immediately started the dragon walking technique, instantly turning into a breeze and rushing deep into the dense forest. So fast. He Shao's eyes once again showed a look of shock that was difficult to conceal. Is his true speed? It seems that even if the dead Qin Yu fights him head-on, he will probably end up with the same fate. This man's strength far exceeds that of monks of the same level. However, if He Shao knew that Suchen had only used the walking dragon footwork of the Xiaocheng realm, and the real Daqin realm footwork had not yet been used, he would probably be so shocked that his jaw would drop. However, the Daqin realm walking dragon footwork is very useful only for Suchen, who is at the 7th level of Qi martial arts. It still consumes too much spiritual power. It is okay for a short time, but it becomes too much over time. Suchen generally will not show the wandering dragon step in front of the world until the moment of crisis. Fa's ultimate speed, this is his life-saving technique. Deep in the dense forest, Zhao Yuding gritted her teeth and ran away with all her strength, her spiritual power flowing away rapidly. However, in her opinion, the yellow-level high-level light skill that seemed to be able to face other monks of the same level in the past, the wild goose without a trace, seemed so slow at this time. In just a quarter of an hour, most of the spiritual energy in his body was consumed. But the distance to the flaming stone cow has once again become more than 20 meters closer, and the distance between the two is only more than 30 meters. This distance is only a moment's effort for the furious stone ox. Time passed little by little, and Zhao Yuding had very little spiritual power left. Now she was relying solely on willpower to persevere. Her clothes were soaked with sweat, revealing her beautiful body. However, the monster chasing behind him more and more closely ignored him at all. No. I can't do it anymore, my spiritual power has been overdrawn, maybe, the next moment will be the day of my death. With her spiritual and physical strength both overdrawn, and coupled with the high pressure of a long-term death crisis, her entire spirit was already in a trance. Zhao Yuding tried her best to open her eyes. The perseverance and determination that had never been extinguished were gone. Instead, there was a weakness deep in her heart that had never been known to anyone. The tremors on the ground became more and more intense, and the heat waves behind her came in waves. Zhao Yuding seemed to smell the smell of burning hair. I, Zhao Yuding, have never said the word give up in my life. If you think you are doing the right thing and doing the right thing, you will have no big regrets in this life. It's just, this life is too hasty. With her eyes closed, Zhao Yuding held the sword across her throat. She has been pure and flawless all her life, and she cannot die at the feet of an animal. That figure from behind, isn't it coming? Inexplicably, such a sentence suddenly flashed in Zhao Yuding's mind. A drop of clear tears fell from the corner of his eyes, and the bare hand holding the sword was about to pull it across. Ding! A stone suddenly hit the tip of the sword with incomparable precision, knocking the red rapier out of Zhao Yuding's hand. It's him. Zhao Yuding opened her eyes, full of shock. A long-awaited Cyan figure appeared in front of her eyes. The young man's face was resolute, his eyes were cold, and the sword in his hand made people feel dazed and slow. It was really fast, like thousands of swords condensed into one sword. It looked light, but it was like waving the universe, and it was extremely heavy. Sword dance, dim. Ha! A sword mark crossed the forehead of the flaming stone cow, and it was the first time. Once he broke through Shi Niu's perverted defense, he cut a small wound, revealing a trace of blood. However, the price Suchen paid for the sword was like a kite with its string broken, spraying out in mid-air. A large mouthful of blood was thrown to the ground. The terrifying brute force of the flaming stone cow cannot be underestimated, especially the flaming stone cow running at high speed. Even though Suchen thrust out a sword from the side door, he avoided the frontal impact. This force is not something that he, a mere Qi martial realm disciple, can withstand. Fortunately, the residual scroll technique has made all the meridians in his body extremely tough. This impact only caused some internal injuries to his body, but the spiritual power in the body moved freely. He flipped with one hand and immediately took several small pills into his mouth. Suchen wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, stared at the flaming stone cow in front of him, and roared. "Brute! Come! Your grandpa is here! Moo!" The blazing stone ox is really angry. It was just provoked by an ant before, but now one actually came out of nowhere, and it actually hurt itself. Although the wound was against it, it's insignificant, but this is enough to make it truly furious. The flaming stone bull's nose spurted out black smoke, and the flames all over his body burned like hellfire, and the extremely high temperature almost engulfed the surrounding area. Burned to a white ground. Its eyes are already blood red, and it is locked on the ant, who is still shouting and provoking itself. If it could speak, it would only say one word at this time, that is die. Online games, I really don't want to have unlimited fusion. Author, 7 years. Chapter 1183. Chapter 1183 Mad Dragon Sword Technique. Unexpected Jin Shenyang. Seeing that the flaming stone cow's attention was successfully transferred to him, Suchen cursed in his heart, turned around and ran away immediately. At the same time, the dragon's footwork is slowly improving based on Xiao Cheng's level, and he can adjust the relative distance between himself and the angry beast behind him at any time. Watching Suchen and Blazing Stone Niu leave like two hurricanes, Zhao Yuding collapsed on the ground, but at this moment, the figure of the young man when he first came out was still in her mind. That slightly immature, but resolute face, that full of the cold but profound eyes, and that stunning sword, echoed in my mind for a long time. An undetectable emotion quietly rose in the depths of her soul, which had never been stained by any dust. At the edge of Juying Valley, there is a small piece of flat land. Jin Shenyang, who is tall and handsome in black attire, holds a long snowflake knife in his hand, his eyes are as sharp as an axe, and the fighting spirit in his eyes is soaring. In front of him, a serrated porcupine whose body was covered with needles as hard as iron needles, with a pair of cold and long tusks protruding from its mouth, let out a low roar of warning at the enemy in front of him. A cold smile rose from Jin Shenjiang's thin lips. The saw-toothed porcupine is a 1-star mid-level monster with the same strength as a 9th-level Kaiwu monk. Can it block my 3 swords? Hey hey! A cold light shone from the tip of the long knife. Jin Shenjiang's feet suddenly changed his footwork, and an afterimage slashed towards the saw-toothed porcupine with a fierce blade aura. The first style of the Mad Dragon Sword technique, slashing the earth in anger. Ouch! The sawtooth porcupine can be ranked among the 1-star mid-level monsters, so it naturally has its own merits. The essence of Jin Shenjiang's sword technique is speed. As fast as possible. However, the sawtooth porcupine only relied on its instincts, and with a single blow jumping, the sharp fangs hit the incoming blade. Kang! The blade collided with the fangs, and dazzling sparks burst out. Chi! A huge backlash force came over, and Jin Shenyang and the saw-toothed porcupine retreated 3 steps at the same time. Meters, the two were evenly matched in the first meeting. Happy! Come again! The fighting spirit in Jin Shenjiang's eyes grew stronger, and he raised the long sword in his hand again. The second style of the Mad Dragon Sword technique, crossing the river. Kang! The two collided again, but this time, Jin Shenyang still retreated 3 meters, while the sawtooth porcupine, after retreating 3 meters, his stubby hind legs gave way and he sat down on the ground. Roar! The saw-toothed porcupine's eyes were red, and he roared at Jin Shenyang. He took the initiative to attack and ran over. At the same time, all four limbs were exerted at the same time. As he jumped up, his fangs thrust hard at Jin Shenyang's chest. If this thrust is implemented, Jin Shenyang must have been shot through the heart and died on the spot. The third form of the Mad Dragon Sword technique, Long Ao Jushin. I saw Jin Shenyang leaping high, quickly rolling 2 meters above the head of the saw-toothed porcupine, and slashing down on the saw-toothed porcupine. The tail was cut off without any bloodshed, and from its mouth, a knife actually split a fierce beast into 2 halves. Snap! The 2 halves of the body fell to the ground with hot bloody air, and the saw-toothed porcupine even howled. He died under the knife before he could send it out in time. Jin Shenyang put his 2 fingers together and brushed the blade smoothly. The cold light was still shining and spotless. With a few more 1-star mid-level monsters, my 3-style Mad Dragon Sword technique can be used more stably and smoothly. However, if you want to break through to the realm of Dachin, you have to go deeper into Juying Valley. Jin Shenyang looked deep into the dense forest, his eyes shining brightly. Crack! An extremely subtle sound suddenly reached Jin Shenyang's ears. His ears twitched slightly, he turned to look at the endless forest behind him, frowned and said to himself, "What monster? Why does my heart suddenly beat so fast?" Being around Juying Valley, Jin Shenyang's sixth sense has been trained to be extremely accurate. Jin Shenyang trusted this feeling very much, because relying on this keen intuition, he was able to escape from countless life and death crises. However, before he could make a move, an afterimage swept past from a short distance away. The strong wind brought by the afterimage blew his long hair into a mess. Who? Jin Shenyang held a long knife in his hand and stared at the afterimage. His muscles and bones were tense, as if he was facing a formidable enemy. Is that a monster, or a human? Jin Shenyang was worried. The afterimage was too fast. Even with his cultivation at the 9th level of Qi martial arts and his strength far exceeding that of a monk at the same level, it was difficult to see clearly what was in the afterimage. At such a speed, it is really rare among the outer disciples of the Vajra section. Even among the top 5 outer disciples, it is rare to see such fast movements. Unless it is that person. But this idea was ignored by him the moment it appeared. However, because that person was currently in retreat in the spiritual formation, it was impossible for him to appear here. However, before he could change his thoughts, there was a sudden slight vibration on the ground, and the bibbo of burning vegetation deep in the dense forest. Voice. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Online games, I really don't want to have unlimited fusion. Author, 7 years. Chapter 1184. Chapter 1184. The Soaring Evil Spirit in Juying Valley. A terrible thought arose in my mind, and I immediately drove away all the distracting thoughts in my mind. Damn it! It's the Flaming Stone Bull. Without a second thought, Jin Shenyang picked up the knife and immediately ran away. The direction of the run was slightly different from that of the afterimage, so as not to back up others. Dry. The afterimage in front must be a monk. He was so full that he led the King of Hell out. The top powerhouse among the 1-star high-level monsters, is that something a monk who has just broken through to the 9th level of Qi martial arts, can touch? What a bad luck! 10 saw-toothed porcupines cannot withstand a kick from the Flaming Stone Bull. However, the body method is so fast, I am afraid that it has reached the Suanhui realm. This person must not be encountered again. Jin Shenyang often practices outside, so he has a deep understanding of the situation here. Many times, the most dangerous thing here is not the monsters, but the monks. However, if he knew that the afterimage was no one else, it was Suchen whose cultivation was stuck at the 7th level of Kaiwu. The latter was 2 realms lower than his cultivation, and the two of them would still be there in 2 months. Fighting in front of everyone, I wonder what he would think. Suchen was also cursing in his heart at this time. He still underestimated the speed of Li Ironstone Niu, especially the Li Ironstone Niu, who was completely angered. That is simply a destruction machine. The places trampled by the flaming stone bulls along the way have all turned into a red land, with flames rising into the sky, black smoke billowing, and chaos everywhere. This bull is convinced that I am dead today. No, I have to get rid of it as soon as possible. I can't hold on to the dragon walking technique of the Dachan realm for much longer. Several thoughts flashed through Suchen's mind while he was plundering, and then he gritted his teeth and rushed towards the real Juying Valley. Although the Juying Valley is cleaned by the elders of the Vajra sect all the year round, the monsters inside are not Kaiwu. It can be easily provoked by disciples in the realm. Generally, only the inner disciples of the Vajra sect, that is, those who have reached the Suanwi realm, can use this place as a training ground. The one-star mid-level monsters inside are just food at the bottom of the food chain. Like fierce flames, one-star high-level monsters like Shiniu are also very common, and there are even several powerful two-star monsters deep in the valley. With Suchen's superhuman body skills, he can still deal with the one-star monsters, but if you encounter a two-star monster, don't even think about running away, just wait to become their excrement. However, sometimes when people are unlucky, they are simply afraid of what will happen. Suchen has just stepped into Juying Valley half a mile away. An evil spirit filled with the essence and blood of the wolf smoke soared into the sky. In an instant, it even covered half of the sun, and the sky darkened instantly. Suchen's scalp was numb, but the spiritual power in his body could not be mobilized at this time. The evil spirit is so suppressed that I can't move at all. It takes a long time to even lift a finger. It's over, it's over, it's over now. I have encountered a two-star monster, and it is not an ordinary two-star monster. It must be a strong one among the two-star monsters. I am afraid that even the elders of the Vajra sect will not be able to get any favors. Suchen's heart felt so cold at this moment. The flaming stone cow running behind him stopped for the first time. As soon as his body stabilized, he immediately wanted to turn around and run away without looking back. For the first time, Suchen infinite fear was seen in the eyes of this savage bull. This savage bull was not a single-minded person, but he was still afraid. Suddenly, a long rainbow composed of blood light shot from somewhere in the Juying Valley, and it immediately caught up the fleeing beast. The flaming stone cow in the middle of the sky. The blood light was extremely domineering. While wrapping the flaming stone cow, it also extinguished the tongues of flames that were swirling wildly on the ladder. The flaming stone cow, which is famous for its rough skin and thick flesh, was in front of this bloody light. Like a newly born cub, unable to fight back, it could only let out a miserable cry, and gradually move deeper into the valley. As the flaming stone cow and the bloody light disappeared, Suchen's this terrifying suppressive force also dissipated. Without saying a word, Suchen turned around and ran away. Who knows whether the king of hell was full after eating the barbarian cow? Although he is small and has little meat, he can't guarantee that others will be as good as him. Not long after Suchen ran out of Juying Valley, he heard an extremely shocking roar of a beast behind him. The roar shook the surrounding area and almost made him stagger while running. Fortunately, a long time passed, and no monsters from the depths were chasing after them. Suchen judged that it might be the effect of the elders of the Vajra sect clearing the Juying Valley for a long time, which made the two-star monsters in the Juying Valley dare not easily go out of the valley. The next day, Suchen, He Xiao, Zhao Yuding, and Tan Qian gathered together and came to the location of Qin Yu's body. At this time, there were only a few bones left on the ground, a few rags, and a pool of blood. One night is enough for countless carnivores, omnivores, insects, and ants to clean up a corpse. Tan Qian and Zhao Yuding already knew the whole story. The two women looked at the ruins with different expressions. Online games, I really don't want to have unlimited fusion. Author, 7 years. Chapter 1185. Chapter 1185, Become the team leader as expected. Tan Kiang turned away and closed her eyes. There was both intolerance, regret and a hint of disgust on his face. But Zhao Yuding sighed, stepped forward and dug a small hole with her sword, and buried the remains of Qin Yu's body and the long sword that fell aside. Although his sin is unforgivable, after all, he was once our classmate and partner. After all, we cannot let his body be exposed in the wilderness like this. Suchen nodded, this woman was indeed kind-hearted. However, this world is too cruel, and people with too kind hearts will not live long. After the incident involving the flaming stone cow, the team has re-established its leader, Suchen. Throughout the entire process, Suchen's performance was too astonishing and inconsistent with his true cultivation, refreshing everyone's senses again and again. And He Xiao also took advantage of the situation and handed over the important task of leading the team to hunt the saw-toothed porcupine to Suchen, and this was what everyone expected. A person who can detect danger in advance, kill the strongest person in the previous team, and can drag a one-star high-level vicious beast around and successfully escape from danger. If he is not their captain, who is qualified to be their captain? After all, this world still relies on strength. People with strength will naturally be respected by everyone. In the dense forest outside Juying Valley, human monks are aliens here. This is a paradise for wild beasts and poisonous insects, and all alien species are the objects of their curiosity and attack. The four of them walked through dense forests, fought through thorns, and fought countless poisonous insects and wild beasts. Relying on Suchen's early warning, the four of them had no dangers along the way. Finally, a saw-toothed porcupine was found sleeping soundly in a bush. I'll lure it here. Zhao Yuding and I will be the main attackers, while He Xiaoye and Tan Kian will be responsible for keeping an eye on the surrounding movements. Suchen quietly laid out tactics to the three of them. The three of them nodded at the same time, and immediately performed their duties and spread out. Roar! The saw-toothed porcupine, sensing the movement, immediately got up and roared at Suchen. Zhao Yuding was still the first once she faced a direct battle with a monster. She followed Suchen slightly nervously. After all, hunting a one-star mid-level monster was too much for her, an 8th-level talented outer sect disciple. She smiled slightly. Uncensored, she raised her clear eyes and glanced secretly at the back in front of her. She felt inexplicably at ease in her heart. This was a habit she had developed unknowingly since yesterday. As long as she saw the other person's back, no matter how old she was, don't be afraid of danger. Attention everyone, the battle has begun. Zhao Yuding, who was standing behind her, bit her lip, stared at the increasingly angry saw-toothed porcupine in front of her, and nodded vigorously. Tan Kiang and He Xiao paid attention to the movements around them, while casting worried and concerned eyes here. Although Suchen's battle their strength has impressed them, but after all, they have never fought a monster head-on. Although the sawtooth porcupine is the weakest among the one-star mid-level monsters, its huge size, thick and hard fur, and the curved shape from its mouth, the pair of wild white fangs that appeared, made them sweat Suchen. Tan Kiang, if something happens to Suchen and the others, we must go up and help. He Xiao shouted in a voice that only he and Tan Kiang could hear, with serious eyes. Tan Kiang knew exactly what He Xiao meant. If something happened to Suchen and the others, and she chose to run away, then He Xiao wouldn't. She will no longer care about her fellow countrymen, and may even become her enemy. However, even if there is no hidden threat like He Xiao, once something happens to Suchen, she will not stand idly by. Along the way, she was saved by Suchen without knowing it. How many times had it happened? Tan Kiang glanced at He Xiao. Human hearts are made of flesh, and she, Tan Kiang, had not been so mean. Boom! 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 She had never felt such a strong feeling when she was being chased by a monster before. A mature saw-toothed porcupine weighing over 1,000 kilograms ran towards us, its hooves hitting the ground like drums, which was shocking. Zhao Yuding couldn't help but feel worried when she saw that Suchen only lowered his shoulders slightly and made no other movements. Quietly, she moved her body to the side. In this way, she had the opportunity to share part of the impact of the ferocious beast with him. The movements of the three of them did not affect Suchen at all. His eyes fell on the saw-toothed porcupine that was running towards him. He looked calm. As the distance between the two got closer, his heartbeat accelerated slightly. The blood was getting hot. 10 meters, 8 meters, 6 meters, 3 meters. The saw-toothed porcupine jerked its head as soon as it sank, its hook-like fangs stabbed at Suchen at the best angle. At the same time, it exerted force with its front hooves. The next moment, it jumped high and let its fangs, which had not drank blood for a long time, pierce into the body of the person in front of it. And then used the huge inertia of the body to pierce his internal organs, open two huge wounds, and carry this overestimating guy away. As one of the few male saw-toothed porcupines here, they are in their prime of life and are mighty and majestic. It has this confidence. Careful. Online games, I really don't want to have unlimited fusion. Author, 7 years. Chapter 1186. Chapter 1186 Too fast. So neat and tidy. Seeing that the captain was about to be in danger, He Shao ignored his mission, drew his sword and ran towards the side with all his strength. Tan Qian bit her lower lip tightly with her teeth, holding two swords in her hands, her feet quickened, and she flew over like a flying swallow. Zhao Yuding, who was closest to Suchen, was naturally the first to make a move. However, when she just took out her right foot, she accidentally caught a glimpse of Suchen's eyes from the corner of her eye. What kind of eyes were those? Like the sun rising in spring, it can melt the ice of thousands of years. It's like the biting cold wind in winter, like a sword, sharp and sharp. She couldn't help but hold back her right foot, because she saw infinite fighting spirit and confidence in his eyes. At this moment, she had an inexplicable feeling that this seemingly majestic saw-toothed porcupine was no match for Suchen. And this is indeed the case. Without seeing the process clearly, Zhao Yuding felt a sudden cold light, and just when she felt a chill on her tender white cheeks, the saw-toothed porcupine's roar stopped abruptly. A cloud of blood sprayed into the sky, and the saw-toothed porcupine leaped high and fell to the ground with a thud. It didn't even whimper, and just died quietly. What happened just now? He Shao suddenly stopped midway. He looked at the beast lying on the ground like mud in astonishment, and then looked at Suchen, who had sheathed his sword and had a calm expression on his face. His brain was a little out of control. Not only He Shao and Tan Qian were a little confused, but even Zhao Yuding, who had been standing next to Suchen and was at the 8th level of Kaiwu, didn't see Suchen's sword clearly. That sword was too fast. It was too clean and neat. Think about it carefully. The moment Suchen drew his sword, a chill ran through his body. The three of them looked at Suchen with a hint of awe unknowingly. Being 1 point better than you is envy, 3 points being better than you is admiration, and being strong is if it is more than doubled, then there is only awe. This is human nature and cannot be changed. Looking at the eyes of the three people, Suchen touched his nose with some embarrassment. In fact, the sword strike just now was a trick on his part. When the saw-toothed porcupine was careless, he jumped high and broke open its softest and lowest defense belly with a sword. If he had a head-to-head fight with this male saw-toothed porcupine, even if he could win in the end, he would still be able to win. He will be seriously injured. This is not only because his body is not strong enough, but also because the spiritual power in his body is not pure enough. If he can break through another level, reach the 8th level of Kaiwu, and then fight with this beast, Suchen will have. I am confident that I can solve it within 10 moves. The hunting process of the first saw-toothed porcupine went smoothly. Suchen immediately took off the knife he carried with him and carefully skinned and divided the beast weighing 1,000 kilograms. Zhao Yuding and the three of them standing quietly behind him, several people looked at him with surprise in their eyes. What's wrong with you? Suchen felt a little uncomfortable when he noticed the gaze behind him. He Xiao touched his chin and said, "It seems that I still underestimated your strength." Tan Qian nodded, obviously very much in agreement. Zhao Yuding looked at Suchen's eyes, which seemed to be filled with starlight. Suchen smiled lightly and said, "It's just good luck, let's share this porcupine together. According to the previous agreement, I only want the monster meat, and you will share the rest, and then I will supply you with spiritual stones based on the price difference." Zhao Yuding quickly waved her hands and said, "No. This saw-toothed porcupine was hunted by you alone, and it should be yours alone." He, Xiao and Tan Qian also nodded. Suchen smiled and said, "It's better than this. All the monster meat belongs to me, and you share the rest. I won't compensate you for the price difference." The three of them wanted to refuse, but seeing that Suchen was very insistent, they had no choice but to accept the friendship. At the same time, Suchen's image in the hearts of the three of them also became taller. He was powerful and did not want to be alone, especially with the dead Qin Yu. Comparing the two were judged. Due to the existence of Suchen, a pervert whose combat power and cultivation were extremely inconsistent, the four people hunted the saw-toothed porcupines very quickly. In one day, 5 saw-toothed porcupines died. Under their swords, a blazing bonfire was lit, and large pieces of porcupine meat were divided into pieces suitable for eating and strung together. Under the licks of the flames, oil continued to drip down, and the alluring fragrance was particularly tangy. "Please," Suchen took the lead in picking up a large skewer of meat slices and started chewing them. "I didn't expect that Brother Ye still has this skill, so I'm sorry." He Xiao had already swallowed his saliva while looking at the barbecue. He immediately grabbed a piece of meat and stuffed it into his mouth. Oh. He Xiao, who was so hot from the scalding barbecue, was still reluctant to spit out the meat pieces in his mouth. He just took 2 bites and swallowed them, staring at the next piece. This guy's funny appearance made the 2 girls on the side laugh from ear to ear, but no matter how delicious the barbecue was, they couldn't let down their reserve. Zhao Yuding used a knife to cut the meat into small pieces bit by bit, and ate it in small bites, looking elegant. When everyone was full, Suchen still put the pieces of meat into his mouth at a slow pace, with his eyes slightly closed, as if he was savoring the delicious food. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Online games, I really don't want to have unlimited fusion. Author, 7 years. Chapter 1187. Chapter 1187. No wonder he is so strong, he even practices while eating. Tan Qian was a little surprised by Suchen's huge appetite, but Zhao Yuding, who was attentive, explained in a low voice. Don't disturb him, he is probably practicing a bodybuilding technique that requires monster meat as an aid. The former reacted and immediately sighed. No wonder he is so strong, he even practices while eating. He, Xiao shook his head and said, there are few people in this world that I really admire, Brother Ye is one of them. Okay, it's getting dark. The 3 of us take turns to keep vigil. Today, most of the hunting of monsters depends on Brother Ye. Now it's time for us to express our gratitude. We must not let monsters or other things disturb Brother Ye's practice. He Xiao's proposal was approved by the other 2 people. After the 3 people set up the camp, they immediately became vigilant. Time passed bit by bit, and the campfire was still emitting blazing flames. Pieces of monster meat were mechanically held by Suchen. On the bonfire, roast, chew, and swallow, at the same time, the Dragon Elephant Prajna Kung Fu mental method was constantly stimulated by him to dissolve and absorb the swallowed monster meat, extract the essence, and continuously nourish and strengthen it. Covering all the bones, muscles, meridians of the whole body, the whole saw-toothed porcupine's hind legs and belly, Suchen's eating speed not only did not stop, but became faster and faster. At the end, even the barbecue on the campfire was not yet cooked. He devoured it, and with the increasingly proficient Dragon Elephant Prajna Kung Fu mental method, it was immediately decomposed. At the same time, waves of warm currents radiated from the stomach to the whole body, and Suchen could clearly feel his own power and strength is being strengthened every minute and every second. And as the amount of food consumed increases, even the spiritual power in the body is ready to move. The spiritual power that should be saturated actually shows signs of growth. It seems that my inference is correct, the residual scroll technique does indeed lack a bodybuilding technique. Coupled with the bodybuilding exercises, it can continuously strengthen the physical body and help the monks successfully break through barriers. At the same time, it also promotes the spiritual power cultivated by the residual scroll exercises. Suchen, who had tasted the sweetness, accelerated his eating speed even more. He Xiao and the others who were supposed to be resting on the side also ran over to help with the barbecue, so that he would not swallow some of the raw meat slices that were still stained with blood. 1 end. The saw-toothed porcupine had 2 front legs and 2 hind legs. He Xiao and the others only ate half of the hind legs before they were full. The other 3.5 were eaten by Suchen alone within an hour. Such a terrifying amount of food, the 3 people looked at the latter with somewhat different eyes. This appetite is comparable to that of monster beasts. I have also seen seniors who practice bodybuilding exercises, and their maximum food intake at one time is only 1/3 of Brother Yes. I admire Brother Yes so much. He Xiao's words made Zhao Yuding and Tan Kaiang deeply convinced. Suchen, who was in the process of practicing, was completely shielded from the outside world. After eating 3.5 serrated porcupine legs in a row, he stopped eating. The inside of his body, the warm current gradually escalated into a hot current, which made his face glow red, like a full moon in the Mid-Autumn Festival, with a faint red light. As the Dragon Elephant Prajna Kung Fu mental method was circulated in the body for thousands of times, he gradually became it coincided with the residual scroll technique. The two were running at the same time, and Suchen could clearly feel the rapid changes in physical strength and strength. Previously, he could only use his own physical strength without using spiritual power. The strength of 100 or 200 kilograms was enough to reach the sky. However, now, he had an intuition that the strength of his physical body had at least doubled. And it was still growing. While feeling the joy of his own strength, Suchen was vaguely confused. Is it possible that the first time you practice the bodybuilding technique, you can have such a big change? If so, why don't many people take the path of bodybuilding? In fact, he has misunderstood. Ordinary bodybuilding monks, consider when it comes to the endurance of his own body, most of them choose a step-by-step method, first taking ordinary Ganoderma lucidum and ginseng to regulate the body, and then choose to eat the meat of 1-star low-level monsters. However, Suchen immediately became 1-star as soon as he got started. Intermediate monsters, although the sawtooth porcupine is the weakest among the 1-star intermediate monsters, it is also a 1-star intermediate monster. The power contained in its meat far exceeds that of low-level monsters. What's more, this guy dared to eat so much for the first time. 3 whole legs of half animals. Their total weight is dozens of kilograms heavier than Suchen himself. The Dragon Elephant Prajna skill and the residual scroll skill form a perfect complement to each other. Otherwise, with so much monster meat and the various monster powers contained in it, he would have to go crazy. Even so, Suchen felt that he was a little overwhelmed this time. The Dragon Elephant Prajna Kung Fu mental method and the residual scroll skill in his body, the method was running at full speed, decomposing, refining, purifying, digesting, and absorbing the huge animal power in the body. One night passed, when the first ray of sunlight in the morning shone through the forest. Suchen, who had been sitting cross-legged all night, finally opened his eyes. Eyes. Online games, I really don't want to have unlimited fusion. Author, 7 years. Chapter 1188. Chapter 1188 Dragon and Elephant Prajna Kung Fu has achieved a small level of achievement. Two unstoppable rays of light shot out from his eyes, piercing Zhao Yuding, who was quietly observing him from the side and became a little distracted. Two streams of turbid air spurted out from his nose, and two plumes of smoke were erupted from the ground. Feeling the strong vitality exuding in his chest and the surging heartbeat, Suchen showed a faint smile on his lips. In just one night's effort, the first level of Dragon and Elephant Prajna Kung has reached the level of minor success. Suchen tightened his fists, as if there was a force in his body that had to be released, making him feel like he couldn't help but scream up to the sky. Junior brother Su's strength seems to have increased a lot. A gentle, crisp voice sounded. Suchen turned his head, looked at Zhao Yuding's delicate and beautiful eyes, and showed a bright smile. Pass. 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 Huge vibrations came from a dense forest from time to time, occasionally mixed with sounds. An angry beast roared. Suchen clenched his fists and stared at the saw-toothed porcupine in front of him, with fighting intent in his eyes. Because he wanted to confirm the results of the bodybuilding exercise, Suchen chose a saw-toothed porcupine early in the morning. Sparring partner. Different from yesterday, this time he did not use weapons. Instead, he used only a pair of meat fists to go head-to-head with the thick-skinned and heavy-skinned saw-toothed porcupine with hair as hard as thorns. Give me another overlord fist move. Suchen roared angrily, clenched his right fist, and violently faced the charging beast. Hearing a muffled bang sound, the saw-toothed porcupine as tall as a person let out a miserable whimper and fell to the ground. Mo. After removing the hot sweat from his forehead, Suchen looked at his trembling hands with the tiger's mouth burst open. Blood was falling drop by drop, but his heart was filled with blood. In just one night, he was able to kill a 1-star mid-level demon with his own strength. Beast Gan lay down, which is a huge improvement. Although his hands were seriously injured, it was only a matter of 1 or 2 small pills. 30 punches. It took me 30 punches to knock this beast down. I believe that after practicing Dragon Elephant Prajna Kung Fu for another half-month, this number will be greatly reduced. Suchen took the Xiao Huan Dan and turned his attention to another battlefield. There, Zhao Yuding, He Shao and Tan Kaiang teamed up to deal with the saw-toothed porcupine. After Suchen's guidance yesterday, the three of them were able to deal with the saw-toothed porcupine. Cooperate with each other and never fall behind. Now, it depends on whether they can break through the suppression of the evil spirit of the monsters and fully exert their own strength. Suchen jumped up a big tree, lay down on the thick trunk, and closed his eyes, resting his mind. The thick leaves completely hid his figure. Although the constant fighting in the past few days has improved his combat power, it has also made him physically and mentally exhausted. It is still very necessary to take some proper rest. Junior sister Tan, don't be afraid, look for the right moment and attack its left hind leg, which is one of its weak points. Don't worry, junior brother, he and I will protect you. Tan Kaiyan clenched her swords nervously, pursed her lips, nodded to Zhao Yuding, gritted her teeth and rushed forward. Junior brother, let us contain it and create opportunities for junior sister Tan. Zhao Yuding, who is the most powerful among the three, can actually barely fight against a saw-toothed porcupine, especially with Suchen's guidance, and now she has become the commander among the three. Lying on the tree, Suchen, who was pretending to be asleep, nodded secretly in his heart. Zhao Yuding's foundation is actually very good. Both in terms of spiritual roots and understanding, she is much better than He Shao and Tan Kaiyan. In this monster hunting, she was the one who improved the most among the three. I believe that as long as she is given some more time, it should not be a problem to deal with the saw-toothed porcupine alone. Bang! 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 Just as the battle between three people and one beast was in full swing, three untimely clapping sounds suddenly sounded. In this deserted place on the outskirts of the Juying Valley, they suddenly heard a strange voice, which surprised the three people who had focused all their attention on the saw-toothed porcupine in the middle. Who? Zhao Yuding immediately took over Tan Kaiyang's attack and suppressed the furious saw-toothed porcupine, leaving 3 points to deal with any eventuality. While attacking the ferocious beast, the three of them swept their eyes around, trying to find the strange speaker. A young man dressed all in black walked out. He had a long body, sword-like eyebrows, and starry eyes. Judging from the ornaments around his waist, he was actually an outer disciple of the Vajra sect. Seeing the strange young man's attire, the three of them became vigilant. His sex has obviously dropped a lot. He shouted, "The senior brother, it is fate that we meet each other. I wonder if senior brother has any advice." The young man flashed a sneer in an extremely subtle way, then changed to a gentle face, approached the three of them step by step, and said, "I didn't expect that I could meet my brothers from the same discipline here." The young man's sharp eyes swept over the faces of the three people, especially staying on Zhao Yuding for a long time. "Seeing that you are working so hard, why don't I help you, senior brother?" Seeing the young man getting closer and closer to them, He Shao and Tan Kaiyang still there was no reaction, only Zhao Yuding turned her body slightly to block the two junior brothers and junior sisters. Online games, I really don't want to have unlimited fusion. Author, 7 years. Chapter 1189. Chapter 1189, Meeting is Fate? At Stake. Seeing that Zhao Yuding, the strongest among the three, had not let down her guard, the young man took the initiative to introduce himself. "I, Ma Zongri, am an outer disciple of the Vajra section. What do you call me, my junior brothers and sisters?" The conversation between the four of them seemed to be going very smoothly. Suchen, who was on the tree, hid his breath instead, with a sneer on his lips. After the young man had finished talking to each other for a few words, the woman named Zhao Yuding was still very wary, with a trace of irritation flashing in her eyes. She took 2 steps closer again, drew out her long sword, and said enthusiastically, "As junior brother," he said, "meeting each other is fate. Let's see how senior brother killed this evil beast." Zhao Yuding glared at He Shao and pulled Tan Kaiyang back. He Shao was secretly shocked, but when he saw that senior brother Ma was actually running towards the saw-toothed porcupine with his sword in hand, he was particularly confused. Could senior sister Zhao be overly concerned? The horse walked lightly with its feet on the ground, and its body shot towards the saw-toothed porcupine like a phantom. It let out a sharp roar and pointed the tip of the sword directly at the saw-toothed porcupine's vitals. Seeing that senior brother Ma was powerful and full of momentum, He Shao glanced at Zhao Yuding. The meaning in his eyes was that senior brother Ma might not be a bad person. Tan Kaiyang also slowly stopped retreating and whispered, "Senior sister, look, that man's kung fu is so good." Zhao Yuding did not comment, just holding the sword in her right hand and watching coldly, her bright eyes occasionally vaguely sweeping over a certain treetop. That's where Suchen rested. Ma Ziyuri's combat power was much stronger than the three of them. He cut off the meridians of one of the saw-toothed porcupine's legs with one sword stroke, seriously injuring the ferocious beast in an instant. At the same time, he placed one foot on the saw-toothed porcupine's long and narrow cheek, and his body seemed to fly towards Zhao Yuding and Tan Kaiyang very naturally. Tan Kaiyang's eyes flashed and she said softly, "Senior brother Ma is a talented person, but he is so strong. He can compete with junior brother Su." Ma Ziyuri, who landed lightly beside the two of them, smiled softly. "Oh? Then, who is junior brother Su? Is he also with you? Ma really wants to get to know you." The horse gradually approached Zhao Yuding and Tan Qian within 3 steps. Zhao Yuding raised her sword and said in a clear voice, "Brother Ma, please stop." Tan Qian quietly pulled Zhao Yuding's sleeve, feeling that the latter was a little unhuman. "After all, someone just help me. Even if I don't say thank you, I can't turn away someone thousands of miles away. What's more, this senior brother Ma is young, strong, and so handsome, so he is very popular with girls." Just when the two were at a loss, Ma Ziyuri held the sword in his backhand and seemed to be about to return the sword and sheath it. Just when everyone's vigilance was at its lowest, the changes suddenly increased. A cruel sneer appeared at the corner of Ma Ziyuri's mouth. He raised his right hand and, holding the sword in his backhand, suddenly swept towards Zhao Yuding, the strongest among the 3. Due to the extremely close distance between the 2 parties, the sword blade had reached Zhao Yuding's chest almost at the moment the cold light appeared. Fortunately, the latter never let down her guard. At this extremely unfavorable moment, she managed to raise the long sword across her chest. Just hearing the sound of steel swords clashing, a huge force suddenly hit her chest and knocked her away immediately. Puff! While the person was still in the air, he had already spit out a mouthful of blood. Obviously, Ma Zuri's attack was planned for a long time. He would hit it in one hit, fast and hard. His spiritual power was deeper than Zhao Yuding's. Ma Ziyuri's backhand sword didn't stop there. Before the remaining power was exhausted, the tip of the sword swept towards Tan Qian, whose face was full of astonishment. The latter had no time to react and was stabbed in the waist by the sword. Blood spurted out instantly. Out! This sword move, in the blink of an eye, seriously injured 2 people in an instant. He Xiao, who was standing on the other side, just started to react, but it was already too late. No! Stop! He Xiao's eyes were about to burst. He rushed over and roared. Ma Ziyuri was obviously a veteran. He didn't care about He Xiao's attack at all. Instead, he gave the seriously injured Tan Qian another slap and knocked her out immediately. The other side vomited blood. Zhao Yuding, who fell to the ground, was also unconscious. It was determined that the 2 of them had lost any fighting power and even the ability to escape temporarily. Ma Ziyuri then turned around to face He Xiao, who was rushing towards him. His eyes were full of contempt, and he looked at the latter's gaze as no different from looking at an ant. "Brother yet! Brother yet! Help!" However, what Ling Ma Ziyuri didn't expect was that He Xiao suddenly shouted to the sky halfway. It seemed that these 3 people had an accomplice. Snort! "Today you encountered me, Ma Zizi, and it was useless to call Brother Li and Brother Zhang. Die in peace." Ma Ziyuri smiled cruelly, but he was not a reckless person. He had left some strength in secret to be on guard against unexpected events. At the same time, a cold light burst out from the sword in his hand, and he directly took the opponent's head. He Xiao tried his best to slash with his sword, but unexpectedly he was immediately swung away by the opponent's sword, and at the same time, the middle door opened wide, and the vital parts of his chest were immediately exposed to the opponent's sword, and his life was in danger. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Online games, I really don't want to have unlimited fusion. Author, 7 years. Chapter 1190. Chapter 1190, you actually use your head as a hidden weapon. He Xiao watched helplessly as the opponent's sword stabbed him, but he had no power to fight back, and his heart was filled with regret. Brother Ye, it's my fault for trusting others. I just hope you can avenge me and others in the future. He Xiao glanced at the 2 girls who were unconscious on the ground for the last time, and a tear of blood flowed from the corner of his eye. At this last moment, he had forgotten his own life and death and murmured in his heart. Brother Ye, where have you been? Why hasn't it appeared yet? Why should I die without regrets? I must not let my two senior sisters and my junior sister be buried together in this vast mountain forest. However, just when Mazuyuri's sword hit He Xiao's heart, something as big as a watermelon shot out with a sharp roar. At the same time, a cold voice suddenly sounded. Brother Li and Brother Zhang are useless. I wonder if the heads of these two brothers of yours are useful. This sentence sounded so suddenly, the voice was not loud, and the tone was very flat. But when it was heard in Mazuri's ears, it was like the sound of winter thunder. Not only did his heart shrink sharply, but his hands were as steady as a rock. The sword trembled uncontrollably. The tip of the sword moved an inch and pierced into the edge of He Xiao's heart. Brother Li and Brother Zhang are useless. I wonder if the heads of these two brothers of yours are useful. This sentence echoed in his mind countless times in an instant, and at the same time countless questions and distracting thoughts arose. Who is the speaker? Is it the so-called brother yet? The heads of the two brothers? Could it be that my two people hiding in the dark have ruined his plot? Or is that person scamming me? But how did that person know the two people who were hiding? Who is that person? A sword stab missed the target, and Mazuri knew that the person opposite him was not seriously injured. He wanted to give up his distracting thoughts and use this opportunity to solve a problem first. However, just as he was about to twist the sword in his hand, something the size of a watermelon flew in front of him with a whistling sound. It was so powerful that he had to withdraw his sword and retreat. The dark object hit the tree with a bang and a crack, breaking the thick tree trunk into two pieces. At the same time, the object also exploded into a pile of red and white slurry and fragments, scattered in all directions. On the ground, Ma Zongri, who had been killed for a long time, only took one look at it and immediately understood that the thing he had just shot was actually a human head. It's just that the head is broken and we can't tell what it looks like. Ma Ziyuri took advantage of the situation and took several steps back. In the blink of an eye, he disappeared into the dense forest and disappeared. Suchen, who came over, didn't expect that man to be so cunning, and he just made the choice that was most beneficial to him in an instant. His concealment skills were so strong that even Suchen had difficulty finding out where this person was hiding. But when he saw the three people lying on the ground, Suchen knew that he had no time to deal with the thief, so he immediately showed up, took out several small pills of return, and gave them to the three of them one by one. Among the three, He Xiao was the least injured. Although Mazuri's sword pierced his body, it didn't hit any vital points. Suchen gave him acupuncture points to stop the bleeding, and then took a small pill. Then, He Xiao opened his eyes and barely raised his upper body. Ha, ha, I knew, brother Ye, you would come to save us. He Xiao coughed up a mouthful of blood and laughed, but the smile was uglier than crying. Suchen didn't say anything. He first stopped the bleeding of Tan Qian, who had lost the most blood, and took the elixir before checking Zhao Yuding's injuries. Don't look at it. I know, at first glance, I found that Zhao Yuding was the most seriously injured among the three. Mazuri's sword was really cruel, and it was as heavy as a heavy axe when it hit Zhao Yuding's sword. Suchen found that most of Zhao Yuding's ribs were broken, even the internal organs were somewhat damaged. If Zhao Yuding hadn't been the highest among the three, Tan Qian would have been shocked to death on the spot by this blow. Suchen squatted down and carefully straightened her up with his right hand. Ribs in the body to avoid puncturing the internal organs and aggravating the injury. At the same time, he immediately took several pills of the life-saving elixir Xiao Huan Dan. Just when Suchen seemed to be concentrating on the injury of the woman under him, there was no hint of coldness. The sound flashed out from the depths of the dense forest, like a poisonous snake in the dark night, spitting out snake messages, without any movement, and biting him like lightning. However, the latter seemed to have eyes on its back, and did not even look. And another black object the size of a watermelon hit him. He thought that the sneak attack would hit in one hit, but was discovered by the opponent in advance. He knew that the sneak attack was about missing a hit, retreating immediately. It makes sense. Just when I was about to hide in the dense forest again, I accidentally saw the dark thing clearly. My pupils immediately dilated and cold sweat poured down my forehead. Second brother. The hidden worry in Mazori's heart immediately amplified into a bomb, and along with that extremely ugly head, exploded in his mind. The rumble made him, who had a cold and deep personality, lose consciousness for a moment. Could it be that head from before? Online games, I really don't want to have unlimited fusion. Author, 7 years. Chapter 1191. Chapter 1191 As you wish. To kill two of my brothers silently, this person's strength must be unfathomable. We can't fight, we must leave. The blood feud between the two brothers can only be avenged in the future. Maziyuri is cautious and cunning by nature, otherwise he wouldn't know the three brothers at the beginning, and only let him pretend to be a disciple of the Vajra sect to deceive Zhao Yuding and the others. It's a pity that he was very sure and meant to play hunting, but was overturned in the gutter by a Chenyajin who suddenly appeared. He was already very sure that the two brothers hiding in the dark had killed the mysterious young master. The eldest brother, the second brother. Although my brother is not as strong as me, he is still a master who has reached the 8th level of Kaiwu, and his real combat power is far superior to that of ordinary disciples of the sect. Because he kills a lot of people on weekdays, the evil energy that is invisible emanating from his body can be overcome even before he is beaten. It makes ordinary people's hands tremble and their legs weaken with fear. However, the two eldest brothers with such powerful strength were cut off by a young man without any sound. While Maziyuri quickly traveled through the depths of the jungle like a snake, he secretly thinking, even if I want to kill the two eldest brothers at the same time without causing any noise, it is simply impossible. Unless the strength of that young man is far greater than that of the three of us brothers. The more he thinks about it, the more frightened he becomes. He was frightened, and even felt a strong sense of fear about his sneak attack just now. His footwork became faster and faster, and he ran away as if fleeing for his life. You can't stay here for long. I am not afraid of running out of firewood to keep the green hills. When I contact the people in the branch hall and find out the details of the young man, I will peel off his cramps, fry him in hot oil, and make him a sacrifice for the souls of my two eldest brothers in heaven. Maziyuri thought of the happy place, and his eyes were filled with the desire to kill cruelly. He thought that his three brothers had been hiding in this vast mountain forest all year round, and they were the only ones who killed people, and no one else killed him. In addition, there were hidden in the hidden line of the King Kong sect. They can easily avoid the sweeps of the high-level officials of the King Kong section. It is not easy to kill these young people who have no experience in the world. However, today, they were severely defeated. They were defeated by an unknown and strange boy. In hand. Wait, within a month, your life will be worse than death. Maziyuri gritted his teeth and even whispered what he was thinking about. Oh. I really want to know how you made my life worse than death. It was still that cold, flat voice that sounded softly in Maziyuri's ears at some point. At this moment, he seemed to have the illusion that his soul was out of his body, and his legs suddenly jumped up involuntarily. Who? Come out. I know it is you. Come out here. The sound was like a tarsal maggot, which made the deep and calm man furious. Maziyuri always felt that even if someone dug up his family's ancestral graves, he would not have any angry emotions, and would only secretly dig up the ancestral graves of his family. He and all his relatives were brutally tortured to death one by one. However, today, all the nightmares were displayed in front of him again and again, touching his nerves and making him tremble with fear. For a long time, there was no sound, and an extremely oppressive silence enveloped Maziyuri's head, like a guillotine hanging above his head, hanging in the air, but always in danger of falling. Come out. This kind of silence made him crazy. He shouted hysterically, and the sword in his hand flashed with cold light. He strangled the surrounding shrubs, grass, and small beasts without eyes into pieces. As you wish. The indifferent voice came again, and Mazunri became more and more crazy. He held a sword in both hands, his expression was twisted and ferocious, and his eyes were red. He was searching everywhere, like a beast that chooses people to eat. But if the two people who knew him well were beheaded by Suchen, if the eldest brother stands in front of him, he will definitely find that this is just a perfect performance by their good brother. Under the crazy and twisted face, there is still a cold and poisonous snake hidden. Madness will only make him calmer and calmer abnormal. At some point, the little finger of Mazi Yuri's left hand hooked up a vermilion pill. The pill was round and looked ordinary. Suchen's figure quietly appeared in front of Mazi Yuri, and slowly pressed towards him step by step. The latter. Mazi Yuri seemed unable to withstand his humble aura. He gritted his teeth and resisted the desire to retreat. He yelled, waved his long sword and rushed towards the opposite side in a desperate posture. Suchen sneered in his heart, after the strengthened body of Dragon Elephant Prajna technique, and then use the Kinyi sword technique that has reached the transformation state, and the power is even more powerful. With each move of the plain and precise sword technique, the horse will be suppressed. After dozens of moves, the horse will move away. The clothes on Ari's body have become like rags, his whole body is covered with long and narrow wounds, and his clothes are dyed red with blood. I will fight with you. Ma Zongri knew that the opponent's body skills were still better than his own, and he couldn't escape today. But even if he, Ma Zizi, was going to die, he would still hold this little beast on his back.